Moshi Moshi.
Hello,
I'm Zeb Ramsbotham,
and I'm Annie Ramsbotham.
and we're the Rambling Ramsbothams.
Our journey might be rambling, but we hope this podcast isn't.
You know what the worst part about doing this on video is?
That they can see us.
Yeah.
What's the worst part?
Well, I just think I've probably worn this same outfit 2 or 3 weeks in a row.
Oh, yeah.
So,
There's a lot we could do to make the video more aesthetic, but here we are.
I'm just here. I'm just relaxing. So, hopefully, if people listening to this are also relaxing and have their comfy clothes on. Because
Yeah.
I have mine on, so yeah.
We'll settle into some comfy time. But first, we have to make a correction from last week. So, we got an email with the subject line, "The Truth About Mr. Donuts." And actually, this email is from my friend June. And I met her in Japan. She lives in Japan, but she is originally from Boston, just like Mr. Donuts, apparently. So, last week, we were talking about Mr. Donuts. And, of course, it's a chain that is really popular in Japan. And I thought, because it was originated in Japan, it actually originated in the U.S., and did you know that not only was it US based, it's related to Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah.
Because I told you, I guess.
Well, I also spent a bunch of time reading about this because I saw that email too. And then we talked about it, and so I had to look it up because I was shocked.
Yeah, so thank you, June, for letting us know about this. It got us into a really fun rabbit hole about donuts. From the Mr. Donuts website, in 1955, two brothers-in-law, Harry Winokur and Bill Rosenberg, broke off their partnership, which they had gone into the partnership of having a donut business together, each to begin his own chain of coffee and donut shops. Harry founded Mr. Donut and Bill founded Dunkin' Donuts. So, yeah, I didn't know any of that. Later, of course, this bigger brand, Allied Lion, acquired Dunkin' and then renamed. They then had all the Mr. Donuts as well, and they changed the names to Dunkin'.
Yeah, I saw that it went through like a couple different like buyouts, or like big corporations bought it, and then offered Mr. Donuts franchises the opportunity to change their names to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah. So 2 things with that. One is that the Mr. Donuts that escaped to Japan came out unscathed, and they actually took off in Japan. It's the 3rd most popular fast food chain in the country, like up there with McDonald's, which is why I thought it was a Japanese chain. But there's one Mr. Donuts left in America. And
yeah, so I found this one on Google Maps because like when I saw the email, I was like, wow, like really? And so I started like looking, and it's funny because there are a lot of Mr. Donuts, but a lot of them are like MR, like Mr. Donut or Mr. Donuts. But this is the only one that is still linked to the actual like franchise trademarked name, like MISTER Donuts or Donut.
Yeah. So it's not in Boston. It's in Godfrey, Illinois, near St. Louis. And actually the guy who like bought that one final one left, he was a veteran that was returning from 25 years of service, and when he came back to America, he was like, "Where's my favorite donut chain?" And so he bought one and he reopened it. And it's still going strong. It doesn't have the Japanese flavors, like the Mr. Donuts flavors that you get here. You can't get things like the mochi pondering donuts. But it does have a very American menu, which I don't know what Long Johns are, but they've got those twists, homemade cinnamon rolls, apple fritters, and biscuits and gravy.
Yes, I saw someone on the picture. They had like a picture of an egg and cheese like biscuit type thing almost.
I miss biscuits.
Yeah, and so it is interesting though. If you would like to try a pondering or the mochi donut, there's actually a Mr. Monut, which is in Waltham, Massachusetts, and they sell Asian fusion pastry. So they have the pondering, and they also have the croffle, which apparently is a mix of a croissant and a waffle, and it's really popular in South Korea.
That sounds really good.
It does, but I don't
like
think I've ever
seen
waffle? It here.
No, but I guess it's a South Korean thing.
Do you think it's like a croissant they put in a waffle iron, and then it's waffle shaped, but it's a croissant?
Did you not look up a Google image of it?
I saw like a quick picture, but I was on the hunt for the Mr. Donut. I wasn't really concerned about Mr. Monut, so I was not super interested. But maybe here, I'm sure in Tokyo we could find a croffle. I don't know if we could find one in Kanazawa, but
It sounds really good. I want one. But yeah, there was an Atlas Obscura article about the single Mr. Donut left that has attracted many a Japanese tourist seeking novelty and nostalgia, something all too familiar but also wholly different.
Yeah, and there was actually a really funny review left by Shinobu M, who left a picture of his cat, his local Mr. Donut here in Japan, and a picture of his Mr. Donut order, along with the review saying, "I didn't know that Mr. Donut originates from the United States. They're the biggest donut chain store in Japan. They serve really good donuts. I would like to visit this Godfrey store someday."
What store did he leave this review on?
On the Godfrey store.
Oh.
Like, he's just a Japanese guy that found, like...
Oh, he just gave it a 5-star review even though he hasn't been?
Yeah, he just wants to go.
Oh.
So he just, like, found it and then saw that there's still one in the United States, and he left it a review along with, like, his personal photos. And I like the one of his cat, like, laying on a Mr. Donut bag. But it's interesting because we talked about how in the last episode, like, tourism... and if Japanese tourists talk about tourism the same way. And so then we were joking, like, well, maybe this would be the equivalent of, like, a hole in the wall, but for, like, a Japanese person. If they found, like, the American Mr. Donut, that would be, like, off the beaten path. And they'd be like, I went there.
All these, like, buzzwords.
Yeah, like, maybe Shinobu one day will go and he'll experience the American Mr. Donut.
Yeah, June said that there's none left in Boston. I think they all closed well before my time. But there are lots in Taiwan. She visited Taiwan recently.
Oh, so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
also read
June.
In a review that someone said there's some in, like, Central America, apparently.
Oh, interesting.
I think someone said that there's some in Puerto Rico, or it was Costa Rica. But I really liked this other review that said this guy drove from 22 miles from St. Louis to Godfrey, Illinois to visit the last remaining Mr. Donut in North America. And talks about how it was founded in 1956. They all closed around 2006, converted to Dunkin's. And then he talks about how this particular one opened in 1980, still around, has the vibrant orange retro color scheme. And then we need to watch it. He is like a YouTube donut reviewer.
Wow, that's a very niche.
It's pretty niche. But he made and it's only apparently in St. Louis. He said, check out my tour of the last Mr. Donut in North America on next Friday's episode of the STL Donut Tour at 6 a.m. on YouTube.
Wow. There's so many things we could be doing with our lives. Like, we could just be...
But we should watch that video.
St. Louis donut reviewers.
Yeah, I want to see the Godfrey, Illinois
It is cool how YouTube
Donut
gives everybody a platform to just get, like, really nerdy about things you love.
Yeah.
Like donuts.
I love donuts.
I brought you a donut. Do you remember?
Yeah, you did. And... it was kind of like a pretty old Mr. Donut here in Japan, and it looked a lot like, it had the similar color scheme to the Godfrey, Illinois Mr. Donut, like that kind of retro orange.
Yeah, I think it just hadn't been renovated.
Well, I know, just like the Godfrey, Illinois Mr. Donut.
It's the original. Yeah, but the one I brought back, it was actually because we had been talking about, when June emailed, I was like, man, donuts sound really good.
They are really good.
So after my bike ride, I went by and I picked up a couple donuts for us. And they have the Sakura flavor stuff already coming out, which, I mean, I guess it's not that crazy. It's already March 10th.
It's also not even really Sakura flavor. It's like Sakura design. But it is good.
It is kind of a floral flavor. Like, it's not cherry. Maybe it's strawberry.
Maybe.
But it's
I don't think the donut has a strong flavor.
It's like a pink donut.
Yeah. But it is good. Yeah. Really fun, like, little donut deep dive. Now I want a donut, though.
You know what we did that was really fun this weekend?
No, what?
Oh my gosh. I've already forgot.
No, I was there.
Yeah, so I'll say we went on a Scenic train, which I've been really into trains, I guess, since we moved here. I mean, I always was kind of liked trains, but was kind of impartial.
I mean, I think that we both like trains, and I was definitely... I've mentioned this, I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast before, but I know I've told you that when I was a kid, I was like a train kid. You know how they like joke about, you know, everyone had like their thing, like, oh, were you into fire trucks, or were you into construction vehicles, or were you into like, I was like a train kid. So when I was growing up, we had VHSs of just train journeys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had like a model train and stuff growing up.
Like, was there narration, or are you just watching trains?
I don't remember if there was a narration.
Wow, you're in deeper than I am.
Well, it's just like as a kid, it's just
just watching trains go by.
Train kid.
Okay, maybe I have some like train nerdiness to go, but
well, I don't think I'm not that into trains now, but there still is like a huge novelty of train travel, just because it's not super accessible in the United States and it's not as convenient. Mm-hmm. So it is still like a fun way to travel, and then there's also the whole novelty of it actually takes you where you want to go in Japan. So
yeah. So the train that we went on was, I guess Japan has a whole class of trains called Scenic trains. I don't know if they're specifically designated in a separate class, but they're kind of, they're prettier trains and more ornate a little bit inside, more elaborate, and often they're on the same track as faster, more efficient trains. So that's why I guess they're in a separate class in my mind, because you don't have to, it's not like it takes you anywhere special. You just get on the train to be in the train, because if you wanted to go to that station quicker, you would just get on like the regular train. Yeah. So the train that I tried to get on the Hanayome Noren train, which is in Ishikawa, but it goes up the Noto Peninsula a little bit, and of course the damage from the earthquake, I guess, is such that they haven't repaired the train tracks or haven't reopened that section. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this in the future and you're in Ishikawa, hopefully we both get to ride on the Hanayome Noren one day.
Yeah. Or if you go to Kyushu, that seems to be kind of like the hotbed for some of the most popular. Like if you're really into trains,
just go straight to Kyushu.
Or at least look into Kyushu and maybe consider, like they have some really neat scenic trains down in Kyushu, and like JR Kyushu has this whole section on their website, and I think they do call them, it's like design and something.
And like concept or something. They have true luxury trains. They're like ones that I can't afford the ticket right now.
Yeah, there's one that is called like the 7 Stars Kyushu, and you have to book it like a year or maybe more in advance, and sometimes a ticket for some of the luxury. Like there's one, the caboose train car is like an entire deluxe suite, and I think it's something like $35,000 US.
Because you get the whole back, like the whole back is windows, so you get to look out the entire back end of the train. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, super cool. But there is like a step below that one that's like a similar vibe, but much cheaper. But anyway, we were not in Kyushu. We went to Toyama.
Yeah, it's the prefecture right next to us, right next to Ishikawa, and we were on the Berumonta train, which is funny because if you look at it in English, it's Berumonta, but it's the katakana shortening of a French like sentence. Yeah. So it's kind of confusing, but it means like beautiful mountains and ocean in French, and I am not really able to pronounce French very well, so I'm going to have Google read this out loud. Let's see if you can hear this.
Belle montagne et mer.
So that's what the train is named in French, I guess, and they shortened it to like Berumonta and then put that in katakana. So anyway, that's the explanation of the name that you didn't ask for. But the sightseeing train was shockingly cheap. I mean, it was, I think, 500 yen more than just taking the regular train, which is like less than $5 more.
Yeah, but this one definitely was more of a like tour than like a luxury experience.
Yeah, definitely wasn't like luxury, but I don't know, Zeb was a little less impressed than I was.
I don't know if I would say that I was like less, I don't know. I was conflicted, but we can do a review at the end.
Yeah, back to like what the train is. The name Beautiful Mountains and Ocean is because the train line has 2 directions. On Saturdays both times it starts in Takaoka, and on Saturdays it goes to Johanna, which is what we did, into the mountains of Toyama. And Sundays it goes the other direction and goes along the coast and goes to Himi. And both times, I think the train ride's only 45 minutes. It's a really short train ride, and it's just one way. I mean, you can buy a round-trip ticket, but you're not really, like, going anywhere very far.
Yeah, and I think it goes to Johanna twice, and I think it goes back to Takaoka twice.
Yeah, so it's just twice a day.
Pretty limited in terms of, like, time. So you could do a round trip, but I think unless you like staggered it properly, you would like literally go and then turn around and
Yeah.
like, come
what
back.
we did is we took the regular train just on the JR line, just the standard, all the way to Johanna, and then we took the Berumonta back. And the only reason we picked that direction is because the way there didn't have any window seats left. I didn't really have like, I don't know if I would have taken the fancy train the other direction next time. Because I guess the only downside of us taking the regular train out was that we saw everything. And then we got in the fancy train and saw it again, which is...
Because they use the exact same line.
Yeah, which is no big deal, but it did kind of... Then the sightseeing part of the sightseeing train was like, what we did, like, just see this. So that part was like a little bit... Like, you looked at the present before you opened it.
Yeah. But then if you do it on Sunday, it goes to Himi, which I think is actually a really cool, like, little coastal town / city. I don't know like what you would call it, but it's fairly big.
Yeah.
But Himi is like really neat, and it's especially cool because it looks across Toyama Bay and it looks at the Japanese Alps.
Mm-hmm.
So especially now on, you know, a nice weather day, if you're in Himi, you get this really beautiful view of the Alps across the bay, and they're totally covered in snow and everything right now. But it also has some really nice public space next to the Toyama Bay, and there's a really nice cycling path that goes through the city.
Yeah, Toyama Prefecture in general has a lot of really nice coastal cycling and stuff.
Yeah.
Like dedicated cycling paths.
Yeah, but it's like a cool place. So Himi is cool. So I do think it would be interesting to see the Himi one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a cool train. And I think my favorite part about it was the color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that like dark green and gold is
Yeah.
maybe my favorite like combination.
The
of
outside
colors.
was really beautiful. And actually, it was fun to be inside the train because every time you go to a station, people would wave at the train.
That part overwhelmed me a little.
It was a little crazy.
It was like a little like dinner and a show. Like I didn't need to be part of the show. Like I was trying to just
enjoy the train,
sit and enjoy. But then sometimes we would like go either through a station and people would like come out on the platform and be like fervently like waving and like so excited. And then one time we went by a road and the road
was
like
rice fields. And there were a bunch of old people out in the road.
15 old people.
With
and
flags.
They were like waving flags and stuff. And then so people on the train start waving back. And it was a bit like, listen, man, I'm just here to ride a train and get a pretty view. Like, I don't need to wave and like,
The train had a tour guide, which is, I think, a value increaser for most people. But for Zeb, he was like, can we just ride the train in silence? Like, I'm just trying.
Okay. So one, we don't speak Japanese.
Not enough to understand what.
Yeah.
I could tell when we passed by all those old people, I was like, what is this? And the tour guide was like, oh, Genki Oji-san and Basa, like healthy old people.
Yeah. And it's like, you're also, but.
I think he just meant that they were just energetic, retired people that were just out there for fun.
Yeah. But it's that whole thing. And then also he didn't really give a lot of room to breathe. Like he just like talked like straight through like for 45 minutes.
His job.
I know, but I was paying for the experience and I just wanted to, so I feel like I'm hating on the train, but it was a neat experience, and I do think it's really cool that there is such like a culture around like the sightseeing trains that people do get so excited. And it was funny when we first went to the station to get on the train, it was like a like crazy rush. Mm-hmm. As soon as the train was pulling up, there were people like running up and down the platform,
taking photos,
multiple cameras. Like people would have like they would have like a pocket camera, a nice big, Nikon camera, and then they have their phones and they're doing multiple like photos, getting multiple angles.
Which I get. I was doing that too. I had my GoPro and the Sony camera that we have. So I was feeling really like train otaku over there, just getting all the angles. It's
interesting to see people just in their element with their fandom, and they were just
I like it. It's
loving
cool.
it. No, it was neat.
Yeah.
And it made me like a little excited because they were just so excited.
Yeah.
I was kind of like,
oh, the train's here.
Like, okay.
Yeah, so when we went to get onto the train, the conductor was out with this big, it was like a sign, when you see people standing on the corner spinning like the pizza signs? It was like that size of sign, and it had the date on it, and then the picture of the train, and I made you take a picture with me holding the sign in front of the train, and then when you go into the train, there are some cool design elements inside the train. It's not just like a regular train inside. They have kind of elevated it a bit.
Yeah, there's like a showcase in there.
Yeah, the coolest part, though, is that all the seats that had been sold out, I mean, for a reason, they are individual seats that face the side of the train. They face the wall.
Yeah, almost like you were sitting at a bar in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Except you're looking out a window.
Like if you're looking at an aquarium or something. Like you're facing
Except
the window.
aquarium is filled with old people waving flags. And then...
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, so that side of the train, you just directly face out. And then we were on the side that had booth seats that face each other, which would be cute. There were some families, and they had the whole booth, and that would be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun.
It was just us, and there was a seat that had been bought across from us. And actually, that guy didn't get on until halfway down the route.
I was really curious about that guy because he got on halfway, and then he just sat there and like played a game on his phone or something. So I wonder if he just literally like, I need a ticket for this time slot, and this train just happens to be passing through.
He was probably like, oh my gosh, it's the Berumonta crazies.
Yeah, he seemed a little kind of like out of place. But
yeah, what if he just thought he got the regular train and then he got on and everybody's like, it's a party.
Yeah, they're like cheering.
The train is here.
Welcome.
So there were fun things that you could eat and drink on the train, which did make it more of a party atmosphere. So the biggest thing is that they had a sushi, like a whole sushi counter, and you could order plates of sushi, and they would be made right there in the train carriage. We didn't do that because they were a little expensive for the amount of sushi that you get, which I totally understand. It's like you're paying for the experience. But we were hungry, and I didn't want to be hangry at a 2:00 train. So we went ahead and ate lunch before we got on the train.
Yeah. But you did...
It was fine.
You got some sake.
I did, which was fun.
Yeah. And I tried to get a coffee.
Yeah, this is probably the number one reason why Zeb has a bitter taste about the whole thing. They didn't have any coffee.
Yeah, they were sold out of coffee.
And Zeb was shocked.
I was a little shocked.
I felt bad for you.
Because I was kind of like, how do you... what do you mean you're sold out?
I guess because most people get on there and they're like, I want the sushi platter and sake. So...
I guess. I definitely think it was a lot different from, I guess, what I was like anticipating or what I was expecting.
Oh.
I thought it was going to be slightly more like of a luxurious train ride and a bit more of an experience like that way.
Like a personal experience, like calmer and quieter.
Yeah, and it's like you're on this kind of like a step back in time on this kind of like luxurious train that goes through this like beautiful setting, and you can order like fancy food and drinks. But instead it was kind of like almost like a carnival ride, and I was like a little kind of I
understand
don't know.
that. Yeah,
I also
You also what?
Well, I was going to say that I think part of the thing that detracted from it was so we talked about this too, that the local train was like the same era of train as this train. So this one was like kind of billed as this, experience. But the local train was the same exact train. It was just orange instead of being green and gold.
It was not the same exact train.
It was very similar.
The inside was nowhere near as luxurious. So the Berumonta train, besides having the cool seating arrangements, they had these fancy wood carvings. They had velvet green seats. They had a sushi bar inside.
I know, so that's true.
It was completely different.
I guess my argument would be on the local train, there was hardly anyone on it.
Yeah.
So we had almost the entire train to ourselves.
It was a more comfortable experience.
You're always allowed to take your own food. I could have bought coffee.
You're going to take a sushi platter onto the local train.
You could. We've done it on the Shinkansen before. So you could have like a very similar experience.
Yeah. I think I was not disappointed in the same way, but rather like when we got off we took a fast train from Kanazawa to Toyama Prefecture because we had to get over there to that train line first. And we got off the train, like the very modern, crowded train, and we were walking to the platform, and there was a cute, old, single car, like red carriage. And I was like, what a cute train. I wonder where that goes. And then when we got to our platform, those were the kind of trains we were getting on. So I was like, oh my gosh, how exciting. We get to get on this really cute old train.
Yeah.
So I was like pleasantly surprised that then I get to ride a cute old train twice. But I guess that I understand that you were like, oh, well, it's not special. It's just this whole line is cute old trains.
Yeah. It was just a different, I don't know if I would say I was like disappointed. I just think it was a different experience. Maybe, like, I honestly had no expectations.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just different from what I thought like a scenic train ride would be.
It was a lot more of a show.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of a kind of peaceful, let's enjoy our time looking out the window together kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I would do it again, but I want to ride to Himi next time.
I would probably just get on one of the local trains to Himi, to be honest.
I guess like
we could create our own experience, and I would get a coffee and get some food, and then we could take the local train out to Himi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's true. If you want like a cool sushi experience and you want to hear tour guide facts and kind of be part of a carnival type like experience, you should take the special scenic train. If you just want to see the exact same sights on a similarly old cool train and have your own space and like be away from the crowds, you could just take the local train and not bother with reservations. I guess that's...
And it's even funnier because the scenic train stopped at every single stop, just like the local train also stopped at.
Yeah.
So
you could use it just like the local train.
You could, but then also it's like a scenic train. I thought it was going to be slowly rolling the entire way, but it kind of moved at the same exact speed as the local train and then still stopped at all the same stops.
Well, yeah.
So it was a little, I don't know, I was just a little confused by the experience.
What did you think about Johanna, the town which is the end of the line where we got on the scenic train?
Johanna actually, I enjoyed. I thought it was nice.
You know what Johanna is?
It's a little Kyoto.
Yeah. We talked about this last week, I guess.
Yeah, last week we talked about Little Kyoto and how this one guy was a little upset that people kept calling Kanazawa Little Kyoto. And Johanna was truly little. I think population like 9,000.
Yeah, it's very small. It's part of the larger Nanto City area in Toyama. But Johanna is one of those cities that has kind of paid into the Little Kyoto Conference. So they are, I guess it's not a legal thing, but they're officially allowed to call themselves Little Kyoto.
Like the trademark or whatever.
Yeah, they're part of the conference.
They're in it. But it was really cool, and it I guess it made a lot more sense maybe why it was Little Kyoto, because it did have a lot of temples and shrines. Like, for a town of 9,000 people, I feel like everywhere we walked, it was like, oh, there's a shrine down there, and oh, there's one down there, and oh, here's a big temple. Yeah. And it's like, oh, there's a big temple.
It was just like a small historic town.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like or unlike Kyoto, but I understand why it would be part of the conference.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I don't think I would have gone to Johanna otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, if we weren't doing the scenic train, I don't think I would have wanted to go to Johanna. But I'm like glad that we did, because it was a pretty just neat little town.
It's a cute mountain town. So the Nanto region of Toyama Prefecture, it's the mountainous corner that borders Ishikawa, and it's just north of Gifu. So like Shirakawa-go, maybe you've heard of, well, we've talked about it before, but it's the area with the gashozukuri straw roof houses.
Like the thatched roof houses.
Yeah, and that's just like very close to this part of Toyama. And they actually have Gokuyama, which is a smaller version of that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's like still had snow on the mountains.
It actually had snowed that day, so there's actually a lot of snow in Johanna.
And we got to see a 500-year-old Zentokuchi temple, which I was really impressed by that temple, because the main gate just had such intricate wood carvings. And so we spent like 45 minutes there just looking at the carvings on the gate, I think.
We do have a bad track record in Japan, though, of going to scenic sites that are under construction.
Oh, yeah.
Because the temple was actually, like, wrapped up. You could still go in and see it, and I think what they were doing is they were repainting it. I don't know if you noticed on some of the wood carvings, there was one spot that looked really faded. That was supposed to be white. Because if you went into the temple to see like what was behind all the scaffolding, there was like really fresh white paint on those spots.
It was still very pretty. Yeah. And the Johanna area, they have on May 4th and 5th, they have this really big Hikiyama festival, which apparently they have a parade of floats that go through the city, and it's a religious festival with dances that scare off the demons and the devils and the welcome the gods, but they display the brightly decorated floats in the museum that's in town. We didn't go to this museum, but next time maybe we can
because I don't know if the museum was open.
Well, we didn't really check.
We didn't really check, but it definitely felt, I mean, one, it's a town of 9,000 people, but it definitely felt kind of like the off season. Like, I don't know if maybe in the summer it's more crowded, like it's more touristy or popular with tourists, but when we were there were definitely not many people cruising around, hanging out in Johanna.
Probably because it's too early for cherry blossoms. Like, they had a cherry blossom road that nothing was blooming
and
yet.
a cherry blossom pond.
Yeah, which I'm sure would be beautiful. So that was too early, but then it was also too late for the snow. You know, it was like too slushy for skiing or anything in that area. So it probably is just kind of an off time. Yeah. But we had a really nice lunch while we were in Johanna.
Yeah, that was really fun. It
was an eel restaurant that I think you saw it on Google Maps or something.
Well, yeah, I just went on Google Maps to see, like, we're going to have, like, you know, a few hours to kill or whatever it was in Johanna.
At the station, they had, like, a hand-drawn map, which I love hand-drawn maps. And they actually had the eel restaurant on the map. And so, you know, if they went to the trouble to draw it in, it must be good.
Or it's, like, one of 5 restaurants.
Which is also true. So, but it was delicious.
It was really good.
And so we went there, and there was only, like, 3 tables. And so I was glad that we got there. Before.
I know, it's really an interesting
I was surprised
setup.
that they didn't have more seats just because there weren't that many restaurants.
And it was such a big restaurant. Or it was like a really big space.
Right.
But yeah, then there were only 3 tables that you could sit at.
So luckily we had one of the chosen few tables. And, you know, the guy came over quickly and was like, do you know what you want to order? And there's only 6 options, really. And they all had pictures, which was helpful. And so I just pointed to one of the lunch sets and I was like, you know, all I want is really just, like, eel and rice, and I'll take whatever, like, accoutrements come with it. So I just I pointed to the one that seemed good. And you had, I think, the one that had the larger eel portion.
Yeah, I had one that came with less accessories. And it was basically just eel and rice and miso soup. And Annie got the one that had pickles and eel and miso soup and rice and...
Eel bones.
Yeah,
which actually, so if I had known that I was ordering, so the Google translation said eel bone crackers, which in my head I was like, oh, well, I didn't know I ordered that, but okay, we'll see what it looks like when it comes. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like senbei that was maybe made out of eel bone.
Yeah, I thought it was like ground up bones that was turned into flour to make crackers, you know. But actually, when it came, it was just the entire spine that had been deep fried. And I was a little bit, like, to look at it is a little bit scary. The same way that when you look at a fish and the eye is still there and it looks back at you. I don't know. I don't like to look at
But the bones aren't looking at you.
No, but I don't like... It's just a little startling when you can tell so directly that what you're eating was alive. I mean, I guess that's also, like, humbling, and you should be, like, thankful for the animal that you were about to eat, but it is a little bit like, okay, this is like just a spine.
Yeah.
But it was actually really good, and
it was really good.
I'm glad that I got it because I wouldn't have ordered it, but it was very tasty.
Yeah, they're really nice, and they had like a nice, of course they're crackers, so like nice crunchy texture.
They were kind of like, if I had closed my eyes, I would have thought I was eating like pork rinds. You know?
Yeah, I kind of had that kind of vibe.
Yeah, like they were very crispy but then melty. Anyway,
But it did come with something you weren't super thrilled about.
Yeah, it had skewered eel liver, and I mean, the liver is fine. I just don't love the taste as much, and so I wasn't, like, when I closed my eyes and ate it, it wasn't as enjoyable, and then when I opened my eyes, you know, it just looks like kind of like bits on a stick, and so I was kind of like, well,
it was just kind of bits on a stick.
Yeah.
I did help you eat them, and I do have to say, though, that, like, I'm not a big fan of liver, but it didn't really taste like liver. I don't know, it just didn't have like, it kind of didn't really have a strong taste. It wasn't as, I didn't think.
Irony.
Yeah, like it was, like you could, I don't know.
Well, overall, I really like eel, which I didn't really eat a lot growing up because, well, 1, we lived in the mountains, and then 2, it doesn't sound very fun. You know, it sounds like kind of a slippery, slimy
Like you're eating a snake or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not like that at all. I actually really like it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a really good fish.
Like a tender, melty fish, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, people who are listening are like, yeah, duh, we like eel.
Yeah.
But maybe you've never tried it. And
if you've never tried it, you should.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's eel in restaurants in North America. But
I mean, definitely in North America. I don't know about rural North Carolina.
Yeah, I was trying to think if I'd ever seen it on a menu.
I'm sure that there's some in Asheville and Charlotte.
No, I know that there is. I'm just like, I don't think I'd ever eaten it before we came to Japan.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. Had you had eel in America?
I feel like I had.
Really?
Like at a fancy sushi place or something?
I don't think I'd ever had it before we came to Japan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now we can seek it out.
And I think it's one of those things that I'd actually be curious to try eel without the sauce. They put a specific type of sauce on eel.
I feel like that's like blasphemy. Like requesting the barbecue without like a...
Well, kind of, but the sauce is so good. So it kind of does make me wonder, like, well, would I enjoy eel as much if it wasn't smothered in some kind of like tasty sauce?
Reading that eel, like families who have eel shops, that sauce is passed down through families. I mean, just like any business, I'm sure that they have their trade secret. But
it's
apparently,
like when people argue about like barbecue sauces.
Yeah, but it's apparently to that degree of like, it's just not that eel restaurant without that sauce. Like people were saying, I guess it was a joke that wasn't really a joke. Like if there's a tragedy, the first thing you grab is like the pot of family sauce.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's like very important and trade secret type thing. So I didn't realize. I just kind of thought it was like, oh, we'll just put some eel sauce on it.
Yeah, I thought you just went to the grocery store and we got some eel sauce.
Yeah. And eel, you don't just go to the grocery store to buy eel. This is also something I read, that it's got toxins in it that can kill, like 1 cc can kill a rabbit or something. And they're not as bad as blowfish, like fugu, because that one, even cooking the toxin won't dissipate it. But this
you have to like remove it from the fish.
Yeah, this one, once you cook it, the toxin is not toxic. But I don't really have any desire to cook it myself.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about another type of food?
Yes. So
do you like ramen?
Yeah.
Would you call yourself a ramen girl?
I don't know what that means, so...
So I found this news article, and it was this like little popular story about how I don't think that either of us really realized or appreciated that apparently culturally ramen is a very masculine meal, and women have kind of not, it's not that they're not welcome, it's just they don't feel welcome. So of course, as a woman, you can go eat ramen, but I didn't know that a lot of Japanese women apparently don't really feel welcome in that setting. And the reason being that it was historically like a very quick meal for businessmen. So businessmen kind of like rush in, they like slurp their noodles down, and they like rush out.
Maybe it's like a motorcycle bar, or like some like super like manly, like...
I guess, I was trying to think.
Like I'm sure I could go to a motorcycle bar, but I don't know if I would like want to.
Yeah, but I don't really know if there's an equivalent, or I don't really know. But apparently it is becoming more culturally accepted to be a ramen girl. And so there's this whole thing about more women are starting to go to ramen shops, and they're fighting the patriarchy, and they're also slurping down noodles and having a good time.
Noodles for everyone.
So
that is interesting, though. I mean, I never really thought about it.
I was going to say, like, I don't know if you've probably been to a ramen shop on your own.
No.
I was going to say, have we always...
We've always gone to get ramen together, because if I'm just alone, I don't usually go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like if I'm on my own out.
Because I was going to try and ask you, like, have you ever felt uncomfortable in a ramen
actually,
shop?
The only time I've ever felt uncomfortable in a restaurant setting was when I was on my own in Spain, and I wanted to go to a fancy restaurant, and no one did anything that made me feel uncomfortable, but it just like... It felt like the waiters felt bad for me. Like, at one point, they brought me a glass of wine, and I was like, oh, I didn't order this. And they were like, oh, it's on the house. And I was like, okay, thanks. Like,
maybe they're trying to hang out.
I don't know. It just... Everybody else in the restaurant was like...
missed out on a little Spanish date.
I don't know. It wasn't that vibe, but yeah, anyway, it was just funny because everybody else was paired up, and I was like, maybe people don't go out to eat alone.
Maybe
you
not.
know, in this kind of
Yeah,
setting. But anyway.
Now knowing the existence of ramen girls,
Yeah.
would you feel comfortable going to a ramen restaurant on your own?
Sure.
Yeah,
But I don't know that
so
I
funny.
didn't
Like,
on my own anyway.
well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I don't think it's kind of weird that I don't think you would have felt uncomfortable going to a ramen restaurant on your own.
You know.
But now knowing that apparently it's this culturally male-dominated space, would it make you think about it?
So, I don't necessarily know. There is a ramen shop that's in Uchinada, and I would feel totally fine going to that one alone. Like, it's not, doesn't have any weird vibes. The things that I'm thinking of that I wouldn't feel super, like, cozy in are the really small bars. And that's only because it's such an intimate setting with, like, the bar master that I would feel bad that I can't really hold a conversation or, like, pick up the vibe. Like, what if I go in and it's like, oh, this is the bar for, like, the super macho men, or, like, this is the bar for, like, I don't know. You know how every bar has kind of their stereotype, and I don't know any of the background. That's the only reason. Okay. It's not that they're not welcoming.
You wouldn't say that a ramen shop, you should first, ramen establishments need to understand and cater to feminine needs, such as airy and hygienic interiors, clean restrooms, wooden countertops, and jazz on the speakers.
I mean, I'm all for airy and hygienic interiors and clean restrooms. I'm impartial on wooden countertops, and I could be convinced about jazz on speakers, but it's funny that that's like the feminine needs for a restaurant.
Yeah, so how do you feel about, above all, female customers need to feel welcome?
Yes.
In the traditional ramen culture, men could be as loudly slurpy as they wished, but women had to live by different rules. In some ways, a woman alone at a ramen counter stood out more than a woman alone at a bar by exposing her slurping self for the world to see, unless she was accompanied by a boyfriend or spouse. Solo ramen eating meant taking a major social risk.
It's pretty interesting.
Do you feel like you're taking a major social risk in a ramen restaurant?
No, but I do feel really self-conscious when I eat noodles because I can't slurp the noodles like in the proper way. I don't know how to do it. I've like YouTube video like practiced it in my kitchen, like how, because like I know how to slurp noodles like spaghetti.
Honestly, at a certain point I feel like it's half of it's just making the sound. I feel like you're not like, sometimes I feel like people aren't actually slurping, they're just like making the noise.
Well, yeah, they're because like, I guess you're supposed to get air in too for flavor and cooling it down, and I
think it's all,
I want to know how to do it, but sometimes
witchcraft
I'll
magic
be
that's not real.
I'll be trying to do it and I'm like breathing in the noodles, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna choke alone in my kitchen, so I'm self-conscious for that reason.
So you don't think you're exposing your slurping self for the world to see? So this article kind of had like a lot of like, I would maybe say like backlash.
I mean, I think I'm
in the comments section because people were pretty like making fun of it. So I don't know if this is a true, phenomenon in Japan. It probably isn't.
It's probably just an opinion piece.
Yeah, and they also had like a funny point about how like in the West they have girl dinner, but here we have ramen girls. It's kind of like, well, they're
not really the same,
but nice try.
Well,
it was just really interesting, and it's funny reading this, but I guess maybe one takeaway would be, if you're a woman and you're coming to Japan, I don't think you should feel bad at all about going to a ramen restaurant.
No, I don't think so.
If you've read this article and then maybe you're now self-conscious about coming to Japan and going to a ramen restaurant.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, just keep in mind this is a pretty weird article, and I think...
Although I think I could be taking on major social risks in any restaurant situation.
Well, I think you would be if you weren't accompanied by your spouse.
Yeah.
If I found you solo ramen eating, slurping down noodles, exposing yourself...
You'd be like, why didn't you invite me?
Yeah, I'd be like, this is a major social risk here. You didn't think I was going to come into this ramen restaurant?
Yeah, and feel left out?
Yeah. Well.
Speaking of ramen, anybody who hasn't listened or hasn't watched Tampopo, the movie, you might enjoy it a lot. It's like a spaghetti western, but about ramen. It's from the 1980s.
Yeah, it's one of the first films that Ken Watanabe was in.
Yeah. It's a social commentary, like the whole movie, and it has like really bizarre scenes, but it's like kind of a weird comedy. But yeah, the Ken Watanabe scene is they're eating the ramen, and he has got this master who's like, this is the way you eat like ramen in such a precious manner. And when I watched it, I thought it was like funny, but I was kind of like, wow, I didn't know people eat ramen like that. But I was missing the whole point, like they don't, and they were kind of making fun of how people are like, oh, it's so precious, like the food culture, and that ramen is just a working class food.
Yeah, and I think you could look at that scene specifically as a social commentary on a lot of things in Japan.
Yeah,
like the way that you're supposed to eat sushi, and the way you're supposed to drink matcha, and the way you're supposed to do. There are like a lot of things I think that was kind of like poking fun at.
Yeah.
But it's a really good movie. So if you happen to find it, I think I watched it on the flight to Japan.
Yeah.
I actually think it was on whatever flight, but really good movie.
Yeah, Tampopo.
Well.
Do
you have a word of the week?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
My word is sanpo.
Oh.
Which, sanpo shimasu, which means like to take a walk, to go on a little stroll. And I like that word because there is a different word for walking, arukimasu. But this is specifically like a leisurely stroll about. Like,
yeah,
you can ask someone like, oh, do you want to go take a walk with me? And it just means like, let's go stroll, like let's go walk around the city.
Yeah, because I don't think you would use sanpo if someone asked you, oh, how did you get here? I think you would use...
Yeah, if someone said sanpo, I'd be like, oh, they like we're just wandering.
Yeah, but if you heard like arukimasu, you'd be like, oh, okay, like they walked here. They didn't ride a bike, they didn't drive, they walked. But yeah, sanpo is like, yeah, it's like an action.
Yeah, people use it a lot when like you'll be just walking around a town. Like you're on a date and you're just kind of walking around.
Yeah.
So I like that word.
It's a good word. That's what we were doing in Johanna.
Sanpo.
Yeah.
Well, what's your word?
My word is boken.
Boken.
Which means adventure.
Oh. Was this past weekend an adventure for you?
I mean, I think Saturday we went on a little adventure.
Yeah, a train adventure.
We rode like 6 trains.
That's true.
We walked around the town just because, and then went home.
I don't know if doesn't something have to go wrong for it to be an adventure? Like, something have to be undesirable, and then, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you can have a casual adventure.
Yeah, I like casual adventures.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs to be...
I'm looking for a cozy adventure.
It doesn't have to be epic.
Yeah, that's true.
Saturday wasn't an epic day, but
thank goodness.
It was a little adventurous.
Yeah.
We had some eel liver.
I had an eel spine.
Yeah, that was all the adventure we needed.
Well.
And something did go wrong.
What? Oh, there was no coffee.
There was no coffee.
Oh.
So.
It was an absolute struggle out there.
It was really tough times. I almost like that lady. I almost fell asleep sitting there.
There was a poor lady on the train, and she kept almost falling out of her chair because halfway through the train ride, she was so cozy. She was. It
was a little bumpy, so she was kind of getting rocked to sleep, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening again to this week's episode. If you liked it, you can leave us a review on anywhere you're listening right now. And you can give us a say hello at ramblingramsbothams@gmail.com.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.